our last two speakers. And I think David was referring to the economic value of invasive alien plants. And we're now going to look at the Opuntia Stricta at a real case study in Laikipia, by the Laikipia Wildlife Forum. And yeah, we're going to hear in detail what their approach has been. It's very multifaceted, and I think it's going to be a great story to end this workshop with. So to introduce our speakers, Mr. Peter Mathenge has a background in project planning and management and experience in rangelands and water resource management, focused on building community resilience to climate change. He has worked extensively with community-led initiatives, including supporting water resource governance, climate-smart agricultural training, and sustainable rangeland management across rural landscapes. Peter is passionate about empowering local communities as key drivers of environmental sustainability, believing that long-term resilience depends on locally led solutions that balance social and ecological needs. And Mr. Mohammed Shibia is a rangelands and natural resources specialist with the Northern Rangelands Trust. He has extensive experience in natural resource management, research, and landscape restoration across Kenya's drylands. As director of the Rangelands and Carbon Program, he works alongside Laikipia Wildlife Forum program officers Peter Mathenge, collaborating extensively on landscape restoration, rangeland management, and conservation initiatives in Laikipia. So Peter and Mohammed will introduce the Laikipia Wildlife Forum's innovative program, highlighting the approaches being employed to manage Opuntia Stricta and reduce its impact on rangelands and livelihoods. I look forward to hearing from you, Peter and Mohammed. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Christine, and good afternoon to all of you. I hope you've had an interactive session, and apologies, I was not able to be there the entire session because we're also having our annual general meeting, and therefore we had to step out, and then later on we were able to join you. As introduced, my name is Peter Mathenge, and I work with Laikipia Wildlife Forum. We are a membership-based conservation organization that supports, facilitates, and coordinates issues of natural resource management within the greater Laikipia landscape. We work across 6 main thematic areas, and rangelands is actually one of the key thematic areas that we focus on. But before then, I will allow my director to introduce himself before we start our presentation.
Thank you so much, Christine and their colleagues over there, and thank you for hosting this platform to share our experience. Just a bit of a correction here. One is I have just moved to Laikipia Forum. I'm no longer with NRT. I'm less than a month old here at Laikipia Wildlife Forum, but I'm more than happy to share experience because I was leading Opuntia management and control treatment at NRT all along up to last year. So I have the whole experience, and I'll hand it over to Peter.
Thank you so much. For this case, we are going to focus a lot on our work related to issues of invasive species, specifically the Opuntia Stricta. And I would quickly welcome my director to speak about how we got started and what brought us to us realizing the need now to focus our interventions on managing the spread of this plant. So without much, details into that, allow me to take it back to our director, Asante.
Just to speak point.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Peter. And so, as we all know, actually, Opuntia is a plant which was introduced for good intention, but it went in the wrong direction, and because there was no way how to check for the population. And so back in 2018, 2019, it became a subject of study for many researchers. So we had USFS, Department of U.S. Forest Service, but also at the same time, that was on the side of NRT, also on the side of LWF and USAID grant. There was a huge through RCMRD. All this are meant actually for mapping, doing some inventories just to establish the situation, the occurrence of the Opuntia and the abundance in terms of percentage and so on across not just only a small area, but the entire landscape. And so 2019, the map was produced along with some recommendations. So on NRT side, there was a choice for biological control where NRT collaborated with CABI. CABI is the international, this is called, yeah, CABI. And so in terms of the policy and everything, CABI is the one which took, I think, the birds to Cochinelle actually were brought from South Africa. And so CABI took it through all the experimental requirements that are needed actually, so that all the doubt environmental impact assessments are all done by CABI. And so when Cochinelle birds were confirmed that they only look for Opuntia Stricta, they will not look for anything else. So any danger, any risk from the policy side were fully addressed, environmental impact assessment completed, and it was confirmed for environmental and human safeguards that Cochinelle could be spread. And then from there, 2019, 2020, with a group of scientists from USFS, we set up experiment and we came up with about 18 greenhouses to breed Cochinelle and then spreading on a monthly basis. And so we also had sampling points, monitoring points, which actually we've been monitoring all along up to 2025 from 2019. And so those sampling points, the greenhouses serve sort of a central point, and so they are spread from there in a radial manner in the four cardinal directions. There are some procedures and protocol attached to that. So what have we found general reduction on that. And so, but also at the same time, the county government of Laikipia came up with strategy. More stakeholders also came into that. And then there were also some aspects of mechanical removals, because there were just how much Cochinelle will do was slow, and then I think a bit of increase, speeding up the whole process was needed. And so people came up with the idea of mechanical removal. As you can see on the photo, the organization and a few others, including LWF, removing Opuntia with a lot of care, because any single fall of the claddles is a facilitation of the spread with care. So there is human, everything is human, but there is a small scale like the ones we are showing here, but also we have a mechanization where big machines are also digging out Opuntia and burying them. Also, this happen at the same time. So, and then with all these very multiple efforts, what have we seen on the ground? Because of course the spread through wildlife continued, livestock continued, yeah, and then there's some relationship from the spread, if you could see, in terms of the expansion, especially along the corridors, livestock wildlife movement corridors, river corridors. These are also the linear structures, but Opuntia presence and abundance also follow. And the Opuntia is always green, but it's just more of green desert. So it's just another form of land degradation. What people want mostly is about more grasses to be present. Yeah, and with all these efforts, we've just seen one reduction in fruits. Opuntia, both green and red, and less spread, and especially places where there were no coordinated efforts on spread of cochineal. Still, Opuntia enjoyed producing more flowers, more fruits, and then animals started moving there. So overall, mechanical extraction could, if managed, it's very expensive at the end of the day. But then the biological, which is more effective and can cover all the places, was also very slow. And so I think the recommendation, as per the county government recommendation, kind of a blended approach where both biological and mechanical extraction are applied. So that is where we are at the moment. But also in the same space, as I said, from 2020, there are more utilization of Opuntia because of the county government strategy. There are a few others who have started like Laikipia Permaculture. They started doing byproducts from Opuntia. So the whole intention was, and then also LWF started extracting Opuntia, making animal feed. So to be honest, at the moment, the places where all these interventions have met, the distribution of Opuntia and the expansion is slowed down almost to zero, but it is still more serious in places where this is interventions are not there. Over to you, Peter.
Yeah, thank you so much, Brother Mohammed. In fact, that has made my work much easier because we've gotten an overview of what has been done within the landscape and what is going on. Allow me to request. I'm actually in a public space because we're having the AGM, so I was not able to go back to the office. That's the reason you hear some background noise. But I'll quickly move on to what are we doing as an organization now to support the community in controlling this invasive species. From my director's presentation, what we realize is that the trend is that there has been continued expansion of this particular plant into specific areas. Specifically, what we're talking here about is the community lands in Laikipia that has continued to face this particular challenge. And therefore, as an organization, we are very keen in supporting the community to manage the spread. And one of the ways that we are looking at here is the manual uprooting community, and we support them to make sure that we open up space that was originally meant for glazing, but this is no longer available. So we work with the community land management committees. We identify the areas that require attention first, and then from there we concentrate our efforts to support the community in removing that particular plant. So the image you see on my left here is basically a site in one of the community lands in Laikipia. We call it Mayanat Community Land, where we've been supporting the removal of this plant through the manual approach. And basically what we do is that once we do the manual uprooting, we have again to think of how do we dispose that plant, because if you don't do proper disposal, then you'll always find a likelihood of that plant coming back again. So we try as much as possible to make sure that the trenches where we dispose the plant are deep enough, and this will help us to minimize the chances of regrowth. And that is one of the key, I would say, the key approaches we've used to actually remove Opuntia in an area of 81 hectares and open up that space now for glazing. Beyond that, my director mentioned about the biological control using the cochineal insect, and I don't want to repeat on what he said, but just an addition is that what we observed is that for this biological control, you find that the cochineal is usually effective during the dry season in most cases. And during the wet season, you find that this particular plant tend to hibernate. And therefore, yes, it is effective, we would say that, but it requires ample time for you to see results. and then the timing of when you are doing it. You need to do it mainly during the dry season for you to see better results. So this is some of the key benefits associated with that. Because then in terms of the cost effectiveness, if you are to compare the manual uprooting versus the biological one, we feel like this is more cost effective. And then once you distribute, once you disperse that cautionel into the field, it becomes quite easy and it's actually a self-sustaining mechanism that you can use. But I want to dwell a lot on this pilot project that we did that was supported also by a group known as FAO. And what we are doing here was actually utilization. After we came to realize that for the two methods, that is the manual uprooting, the biological control, as well as the mechanical, they are quite expensive. We were trying to look for a way that will now incentivize the community to participate more in the management of this particular plant. And what we did, basically, we partnered with the Kenya Agricultural and Livestock Research Organization, and we were trying to look at how best do we utilize the Opuntia Stricta specifically as a source of forage during the drought season. And this is actually in line with the value chain along the Opuntia. And for us, we understand that there are so many other ways you can utilize. You can do the biogas production. You can do the issues of, for instance, the wine and the juices. But we are looking at what can be done at a scale to match up with the speed of innovation. And that is what brought us now to the conversion of this particular plant into animal feeds. And I'll just share some of the images of what we did and just give you a clear overview of how we went about this particular process. And to start with, we decided that we are going to run a project, a pilot project, for a duration of 84 days. And the idea was very simple. We knew that for Opuntia Stricta, the main challenge with the livestock are actually the spines. And so we had to get equipment that would help us to burn those particular spines. And then after we burn those particular spines, we thought of why not now think of the dry matter content that is required, because then that would help us in the processing bit of it. So what we did, we were able to source sawdust within the timber yards, within the surrounding areas, and the sawdust was to add the dry matter content in this particular pilot project, because we know the Opuntia Stricta as it is, 95% of it is actually moisture content. So we were looking at what can be added to that. And these are just some images showing how you do the treatment of the sawdust. We were using urea to treat the sawdust, just to make sure that we also increase the nitrogen content in it. And then after we treat the urea, using a ratio of, we were actually using 3 kgs of urea, kg of sawdust. We would actually package it now in an airtight bag. We leave it for 14 days. And then from there, now into the processing of the cactus. And this was actually the main bit. And for us, we had 3 feed formulation that we developed. One of it, we were looking at direct, pad as it is, where we would just burn the spines. And then after burning the spines, we would now focus on, getting the pad sliced into smaller pieces to make it more palatable to the livestock. And for this case, we did one of the feed formulation involving 60% of the Opuntia pads and 40% of the sawdust. And then from there, we also looked at how can we process this further without necessarily having to burn those particular spines, because it was time consuming. And given the huge, I would say like the huge number of livestock that we have within the pastoral communities, we were looking at what can become more efficient. So we decided we are going to process this into a slurry form. And the video that I'm playing here basically shows how the processing of this particular Opuntia now was done before we mix it with the sawdust. So this is how the slurry form looks like. I'll just allow that video to complete playing, and then we can proceed. But this is basically the slurry form where we now mixed it with 20% sawdust, and the other feed formulation, we were mixing it with 40% sawdust. And then we also had another feed formulation where now we were using hay, locally sourced from the area. And allow me to mention the reason why we opted for the sawdust. Because you find during the drought season, hay becomes quite expensive. For those of us who are in Kenya, we used to get quality hay all the way from Kakuzi, and a bale would get to our project area at around 600 shillings per bale. That was way beyond what the community would afford. And that is the reason why we decided we are going to focus a lot on the sawdust as the dry matter content. So we used to mix this particular sawdust with, the slurry form. And then from there we test, and we actually introduce the livestock to this alternative feed. So from there, I'll be able to share some of the results later on in another engagement. But what we came to realize, and this was the most important finding to us, is that you can be able to manage and actually sustain your livestock using the Opuntia based feeds during the crisis period. And this would mean that for the pastoral communities who are in the lower zones, they really don't have to move their livestock to other areas in search of pasture. And this kind of also help us to reduce on the conflicts that we're also looking at when we deal in terms of the programming for all the work that we do. So that is what we came to realize. But I'll be able to share more results if someone is interested. I'll be able to send my email, and then we can be able to share more technical results on the finding of that particular pilot project. But to sum it up, we ended by having a national workshop on Opuntia Stricta, where we brought on board the technical actors within the landscape just to share the knowledge and the insights on what can be done in terms of scaling up, for instance, the utilization bit of this particular plant, and also looking at more sustainable ways. For instance, the machine that we are using here was diesel powered, but how can we look at scenarios whereby biomass from Opuntia is again used to power those particular equipments? So those are some of the things that we are looking at. And we believe that with the next phase, these are the key lessons that we are going to incorporate to make sure that we work towards improvement of what we are currently doing. So the workshop was convened. This happened in February 2025. And we brought on board the different government agencies, the key research institutions, all the county and the national level actors who we believe have a role in this particular invasive species management, just to come up with a strategy that will help us now towards improving the management approaches that we've had. And for us, this is just what we are looking at. The way forward is just to improve the rangeland management strategies. Currently, Laikipia County is actually in the process of developing a strategy for these particular rangelands and understanding what are the key interventions that can be incorporated, and those that can actually be operationalized at the community level to make sure that issues of invasive species are addressed and given the right attention to make sure that we minimize the spread. Then the aspect of scaling up some of the innovations, for instance, that conversion of the livestock, and that is quite key because then you can be able to do it in a large scale, and then continued monitoring and restoration to make sure that we have up-to-date data on the areas that requires a lot of attention, and finally issues of partnerships as well as mobilize resources more, and also getting the community to be at the forefront of what we are doing. So that is it from our end, and we welcome any questions, any insights from your end that will make our work better, and also get to learn from the team that is here. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Peter. Thank you, Mohammed. Yeah, fantastic talk. You really have created an amazing program. And I'm going to start with a question while we wait for the audience to also come up with questions. Well, first of all, I'm just going to say it's quite a huge area that has been invaded. You mentioned 11,500 hectares, which is pretty huge. And you've really created a sophisticated approach to creating the baseline and the monitoring and the scaling up. I'd like to ask you about, it's a question that I think a lot of people do ask. If you create an economic value for a invasive alien plant species, does it mean that it will be purposely spread to other areas so that that it can be used by other people, and that it can actually get out of control in a wider area?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for that question. And allow me to respond to that by saying, number one, when we create economic value for these invasive species, the goal that we have at the end of it all is for us to accelerate the management efforts that are being undertaken within the landscape. And at the national level, we talk of eradication, and we don't intend at any given point to kind of promote these alien invasive species. So for us, the main agenda is to make sure that we have the community supporting us to manage the spread of this particular plant, but at a more cost effective way, and actually at a reduced cost, because we are looking at how can we bring them on board to support us in the work, as opposed to you facilitating them to carry out probably removal in a certain hectareage. So the way we do it is basically to make sure that we find a way that will make this particular management much cost, like maybe in terms of the cost being reduced, and also having us the communities finding the need for them to participate in such an activity. But I will let my director probably to give some addition in case he has any.
No, that's enough.
Yeah.
Enough.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I think we can proceed. Listen, yeah.
Okay, I'll continue. David was saying about how with his research, he hadn't come across any sort of herbicides that were registered for the use of Opuntia in Kenya. Did you do that kind of research at all? Do you know of anything that is available?
All right. For the herbicide, actually, as per the county government strategy I've mentioned, I remember a proposal from the stakeholders. Herbicide could help, large scale eradication. And so that role was left with Kabi. And we don't know where it is, and we are happy to see. And whether it will help it or not, you see, the herbicide, this is a very biodiversity rich area. And the herbicide, having a selective one that will spare other living, it's another journey, it's another experiment. We have no knowledge, and it has not been applied yet.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Mohammed. I just wanted to ask you, out of curiosity, how did the cattle do on the feed, the sawdust and cactus mix feed?
Yeah, great question. So we were able to maintain the weight of the livestock, but I must say that during the initial adaptation period, which was basically 14 days out of the 84 days, we realized that the animals were quite hesitant to actually, consume the cactus-based feed. But that was expected, and that was actually part of the design where we did the first adaptation for the 14 days. But later on, by the time we were closing the pilot project, out of the 22 heifers that were in that pilot project, we realized that the highest had actually gained 3 kgs over the period. And that was quite commendable because we never expected that. Ours, we thought that we just maintain the weight and be able to confirmed that we can actually use the cactus-based feed to maintain the livestock during the drought season. So you find that in the initial period, animals would lose weight, yes. But after that, we realized that they were able to adapt and they were able to pick up with this, which was quite, like a positive finding in that particular project. But it's always important to make sure that before you initiate such a project, number one, I think aspect of insurance comes in quite handy because you never know. The test might go either way. But most importantly, for us, because we were also working with experts, livestock experts, at least we were able to see some good result, and all the livestock were actually able to maintain their weight without having any recording actually a decline in terms of their weight.
Sure, that's fantastic, Peter. Well done with all the research.
Yep.
I see there's a message from the Wildlife Tourism College. Is it possible to see the final product of the feed? I'm not exactly sure what they're asking. Do you understand that question, Peter?
Yeah, what we can do, what we can do is basically, because we had also the pellets as
Yes.
part of the feed that we were making. And this one we were actually collaborating with the university, the Jomo Kenyatta University, because that they had the light equipment to do the pelletization of this particular Opuntia. So what we can do, we could share some images later on. But what we have here is basically the slurry form that which I presented in that video. So we really don't have like the final feed, and we've not even gone to the point of commercialization at this stage because this was basically a pilot. But if you're interested in seeing the pellets, how they look like, just basically the other one is the slurry form mixed up with the sawdust. So there is no much, I would say, like steps that were taken in terms of commercialization, but that will be the next step where now you can be able even to see some of the very, very final products being let out at the community level.
Johan, would you like to ask your question? Thank you.
Yes, I have to ask Peter why he has an invasive species named after him. I see there's a prosopis called Mathenge.
Okay.
Too much coincidence.
Okay, and then let's go to that.
It's a coincidence. That's this is young Mathenge,
and then
and the other one is a very old Mathenge who brought in Mathenge as a prosopis. Prosopis as a wonderful tree in the early 1980s, jointly with back then the former President Moi. And so Mathenge was an environmentalist, so that is where it has spoken from. So this is young Mathenge, the other one is very old Mathenge.
Yeah.
Thanks, Mohammed. Great answer. Thank you. Thanks, Johan, for the observation. I would like to say thank you to all our audience. Thank you for the Wildlife Tourism College, and thank you for all our experts. It's been an amazing day, and I hope you all go forth and tackle those invasive species and have success with it. So thank you very much for the day.